Well, if it is 59 minutes past 8 p.m. East African time, thank you so much for joining us on this edition of TV47 News Tonight. We have a lot lined up for you in the world of politics, sports, business, and much more. But first, let's have a look at the highlights. Tonight, the president breaks silence on controversial comments made by trade CS Moses Kuria.
I saw one journalist saying the president should defend us from Moses Kuria. That's fine, I'll do my bit. But I want to ask them, so who is going to defend me from rogue media?
As Kuria remains defiant and unapologetic,
I am not apologizing. First, they should apologize to Gerard Andai, whom they have threatened to fire just for wanting to write an article that is balanced.
Civil society organizations say they will be taking Kuria to court. Kenyans to feel the realities of pain at the pump after MPs approve the increase of VAT in fuel from 8 to 16%. And the government's involvement in issuing burial permits in Shakahola has sparked inquiries regarding its awareness of activities within the forest.
And they told us that, they were informed that it's not just a word of God. Yeah, there is a possibility of, indoctrination of some kind, or the use of mental, possession of some kind.
As Mackenzie cries foul over the time it has taken to prosecute him.
Since the other side of the story is not known at the moment, I will only direct that the rights of the respondents be protected while in custody. I'll also direct that the prosecution obtains instructions so as to respond on the allegations on the next mentioned date.
Well, good evening and welcome to the broadcast. My name is Eric Munene. Our sign language interpreter at the bottom end of your screen is Rhoda Nyamai. Now, Kenyans will now have to bear with the burden of the increase in the price of fuel after Parliament voted to increase the VAT on fuel from 8% to 16%, as Flora Limuki now tells us.
A heated debate ensued in the National Assembly when the clause on amendment to raise value-added tax on fuel to 16% from 8% came up.
To be debating on facts and not shouting at each other.
Azimio leaders, led by Minority Leader Opiyo Wandayi, had proposed that the VAT remain at 8%, saying the increase will overburden Kenyans.
If there is one thing that this government should have done to the so-called hustler, was to cushion the hustler from an increment in the cost of fuel.
Honorable Speaker, after we have taxed nearly everything, there is no need of pretending of executing and implementing a 16% taxation.
Kenya Kwanza told us when they were launching their plan that the problem with fuel is taxation. We are going to look into taxation and we are going to reduce taxes on fuel.
Life is unbearable as we speak to our citizens of this republic. We cannot afford to add more levy on fuel because fuel is a catalyst of everything.
On the other hand, Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah indicated that VAT on fuel in Kenya is at the lowest within the East Africa region. Away from the floor of Parliament, the repercussions of this decision will not only be felt in the transport sector but also in the prices of goods.
That without the G2G intervention on fuel prices, today, with the dollar trading at 140 shillings plus, the cost of fuel today without the necessary interventions done by this regime would be at a figure of about 210 plus shillings without the interventions that have been taken by government.
The passing of this amendment means that the cost of petrol may hit the 200 mark. It remains to be seen if the price will lower with time, as asserted by the Kenya Kwanza government. Flora Limuki, TV47.
Now, in relation to that, members of the National Assembly are currently voting for or against some amendments on clauses that are included in the finance bill. Let's now cross over to the National Assembly and get live what is happening.
61, rudia tusikie. Okay. Kururia Elijah Njore.
I vote yes.
Who's Kururia?
Over there.
Who's Kururia?
Over there. Okay.
Kagombe Gabriel Gaduka.
Yes.
Odhiambo Elisha Ochieng. Yedenji Robert Gishimo. Wanjira Martha Wangare. Wamushomba Gadhoni. Gimose Charles Gumini.
Yes.
Osogo Bensuda Joyce Atieno.
No.
Kaluma George Peter.
No, because this provision is unconstitutional, I say no.
Karido Kiili Daniel. Karido Kiili Daniel. Manaiba Julius Taitumu. Mwirigi John Paul. Abdi Ali.
I vote yes.
Shinali Bernard Masika. Shinali Bernard Masika. Bonaya Mumina Golo. Lomwa Joseph Samal. Tubi Bidu Mohammed.
Well, and of course, that is a story that we have our eye on. We'll be telling you about the developments later on our subsequent bulletins. Now, the National Assembly chamber experienced a hot debate Wednesday afternoon between Kenya Kwanza members of parliament and the opposition, that is Azimio la Umoja, One Kenya camp, over the 2023 finance bill, which is at the committee stage where the real legislation happens. The legislators amended various clauses in relation to finance chairperson's proposals, giving Kenyans a sigh of relief from a bank of taxes aimed at financing President Ruto's budget. Micah Gongo with that report.
I will allow some ventilation on this.
The third reading of the draft legislation reached to floor of the House Wednesday afternoon, presented by the chairman of the Finance and National Planning Committee, Kuria Kimani. In the third reading currently underway, MPs are voting on the amendments proposed by the Parliamentary Finance and Planning Committee.
So that we only have one clause that puts now supply of maize flour, cassava flour and wheat flour as zero rated.
On Tuesday night, the legislators approved 24 out of the available 86 clauses before embarking on the remaining clauses Tuesday afternoon. Among the approved clauses so far include aircraft spare parts and fish importation. The aviation sector got a fresh boost after MPs refused to amend the clause set to add aircraft spare parts including engines to a list of tax-exempt items.
We must refuse these people from not paying taxes. Yeah. So we must support, I support this amendment and we must adopt it.
We are not being fair to this country to oppose this amendment. This amendment will ensure we make quality jobs. We bring more aircrafts from other countries to come and be repaired in this country. And it also gives us an opportunity to open up even an airport in your constituency.
The National Treasury proposed to exempt chopper importers from remitting 16% VAT. Azimio MPs said the move was aimed at aiding Kenya Kwanza MPs to exemplary comfortable environments after importation of choppers.
And a number of our colleagues here have actually ordered helicopters and other forms of aircraft. Madam Chair, this is a very serious matter. As you know, Madam Chair, one of the few people who are privileged to have a lot of information.
But for me, Honorable Chair, I am not, unless he's speaking of a different Osoro, I don't know whether there is a chopper, unless you paid it for me on my behalf or something.
Supporting these amendments would be tantamount to say that we want the Kenyans who are jobless to continue being jobless. We want to bring back the business of servicing and the repairing of planes back at Wilson Airport. I vehemently oppose these amendments.
Will as many as are of that opinion say aye? Will as many as are of a contrary opinion say nay? The nays have it.
Azimio MPs had also proposed to have fish deleted from items listed for excise tax and the 35% proposed income tax for those earning over 500,000 scrapped.
We have never had a glut of fish by saying that we have more into the country that will expose us to lots of problems, Honorable Speaker. We have scarcity in the country.
We want to eat fish. As people who eat fish, we lack the fish in this country is very expensive. The problem we have of fishermen is not the market where we take our fish.
You should be encouraging our fishermen to be able to grow more fish and encourage the Ministry of Fisheries, Honorable Speaker, to be able to train our farmers, our fishermen, on how to protect the stock we have around the lake.
With more than 85 clauses, President William Ruto's bill seeks to raise additional revenue in taxes to a tune of 130 billion shillings, set to finance his 2023-2024 budget, as presented by CS Njuguna Ntungu last week. Mike Kagwongo, TV 47, Nairobi.
Away from that now, tonight, President William Ruto has broken his silence on this week's spat between Trade Cabinet Secretary Moses Kuria and the Kenyan media. The president, speaking during the 2023 edition of the Safari Rally in Naivasha, came to the defense of Kuria, saying the rights of those who criticize what he called a rogue media should also be safeguarded. And as our senior political affairs reporter Paulo Kamau tells us, pressure from non-governmental organizations and the Azimio coalition continues to pile on the CS to leave office.
President William Ruto, while in Naivasha, finally waded into the now infamous spat between Trade Cabinet Secretary Moses Kuria and the media, triggered by an expose on an edible oil scandal, which called out the CS for allegedly playing a part in the awarding of tenders to supply edible oils, a scenario which saw the taxpayer lose billions. The president saying the CS has a right to call out what he described as a rogue media that has also taken him through hell, while at the same time saying his administration will respect media freedom.
When the media goes rogue, we must also defend the right of people like Moses Kuria to speak their mind. The same way we are defending the media to say all the things they want, including the wrong ones, right? And I saw one journalist saying the president should defend us from Moses Kuria. That's fine. I will do my bit. But I want to ask them, so who is going to defend me from rogue media? Because I go through hell all the time.
The CS, who appeared before the Senate to answer questions on his ministry, remains unapologetic over his insults against the media, saying the media should be responsible and be ready to be held to account.
I'm not apologizing. First, they should apologize to Gerard Andai, whom they have threatened to fire just for wanting to write an article that is balanced. My friend, I've been a media owner before. I've been a writer in your newspapers and all that before. There's nobody who is pro-media more than me. But I know the difference between media and what Thomas Baldwin called the prerogative of the harlot, the exercise of power without responsibility.
Kuria's tough stance on his media attack could land him in court after Haki Africa threatened to move to court to have the CS found unfit to hold public office.
Tunafikisha hili swala mahakamani wiki itakayofika ili koti ielezee, na tuna mfano wa yule aliyekuwa naibu wa jaji, nafikiri tunamkumbuka miaka kadhaa iliyopita, Nancy Baraza. Makosa alifanya, alimshika tu yule msimamizi pua, akamwambia you should know people, wewe unafaa ujue watu, na huyo dada alifutwa kazi, aliondolewa kwa sura ya 6.
At the Senate, it was not a rosy Wednesday morning after Azimio senators staged a walkout, terming his question time address as tantamount to sanitize his unbecoming conduct.
Moses Kuria, as you know, is the poster child of hate speech and ethnic contempt in this country. He's a very acerbic tongue. He's a staff of legend in this country. And for the Senate to afford him an opportunity to essentially sanitize himself this morning, especially in the circumstances that he is facing a censure motion that has been brought by the minority side.
This after Speaker Amason Kingi ruled out Azimio for claiming the CS will not address the House during question time due to the pending censure motion, which was filed on Monday.
It would appear like a policy has been put in place to intimidate, to harass, and to threaten media houses. And when they begin this way, they don't stop. They push. You people must push back.
Kuria Moses has no respect for himself. He has no respect for institutions. He has no respect for this country. And the best thing the president can do before he steps down is to sack him.
We should not allow this parliament to be soiled by the character of Moses Kuria. This is a place where people debate. This is a place where the sanctity of confidence to the nation.
Azimio's censure motion, filed by Nairobi Senator Edwin Sifuna, wants the CS to be found unfit to hold public office, the government to be compelled to state Kuria's utterances as personal and do not reflect official policy, and an assurance by the Kenya Kwanza administration that media freedom will be guaranteed as provided for in the Constitution. Apul Kamau, TV.
Now, in the aftermath of the controversial remarks by Cabinet Secretary for Trade and Industrialization Moses Kuria, beyond the varied reactions that followed his words, a new push is emerging. This push is driven by the question, did CS Kuria contravene the Constitution? If so, what happens now? Our reporter has the details.
It is from these recent statements and controversial tweets against the media by Cabinet Secretary for Trade and Industrialization Moses Kuria that sparked mixed debate from Kenyans on the conduct of a state officer. Opposition leaders led by Nairobi Senator Edwin Sifuna piling pressure on the government to dismiss CS Kuria, terming him unfit to hold office. With that, the question that now emerges as the CS violated the Constitution from his verbal conduct. Article 75 of Chapter 6 of the Constitution provides for the regulations on the general conduct and demeanor of all state officers. It states that an officer, whether in public and official life, private life, or associations with other persons, shall behave in a manner that avoids any conflict between personal interests and public or official duties. Further, he or she should not compromise any public or official interest in favor of a personal interest or demean the officer whole. Nominated Senator Beatrice Ogolla today backed the calls for dismissing the CS, saying he has violated ethics and integrity as stated in the Constitution. That brings the question of what happens when a state officer is in violation of the stipulated guidelines. Article 75 states that the state officer shall be subjected to disciplinary action, and if found to have contravened the law, they shall be dismissed from office. As the outburst from CS Moses Kuria continues to draw criticism and calls of dismissal from public office, today the High Court in Nairobi, through Justice Lawrence Mugambi, in a ruling, has barred the CS from expressing any insulting or demeaning words against any media organization. Joash Onsare, TV 47.
To a different matter now, Jakim Hospital Nkubu Limited in Imenti South, Meru County is among 6 facilities that have been shut down today following Health CS Susan Nakumecha's directive in dealing with the controversial NHIF scandal. Speaking to journalists, Jakim Hospital Administrator Edith Gatwiri says the hospital has successfully transferred all their patients to the nearby hospitals in order to pave way for investigations to be conducted. Our health reporter Zainab Mohammed with more.
This was the situation at JKIM Hospital in Nkubu, Meru County, after the hospital shut down to pave way for investigations to be conducted in the controversial NHIF scandal. The hospital, which is among 6 health facilities in the saga, had to ferry its patients to nearby facilities and completely halt their operations as directed by the CS. Edith Gatwiri, JKIM Hospital Administrator, says the situation is an unfortunate one, but the hospital has cooperated in the entire process with the hope that they will be absolved in the end.
It is unfortunate that our facility has been linked with this matter, and I want to tell our clients that we are sorry because we are not offering services as per the directives from the government. Investigations from relevant authorities are already taken this matter, and we are now waiting for them to advise us.
Area residents are calling on the government to reassess the decision, saying the closure will affect access to medical services in the area.
Ukiangalia hapa kuna wakati hospitali haikuja hapa kulikuwa kama jangwani. Saa hii ukiona hapa ni pale kunainuka. Tafadhali, kwa sababu kuna watu wengi wale wanakula hapa hospitali karibu 260 hapo. Naomba hata kama ni issue imekuja, bandala tupungiwe hii hospitali, tafadhali tupunguliwe hospitali hii investigation ifanywe hospitali ikiwa imefunguliwa.
Tunataka serikali ingilie hii mambo, hospitali ifungwe, wakae siri na serikali, wafanye kesi after kesi kuisha, alafu tuziwe next. Bila kutakuwa, kwa sababu watu ni wengi hapa sana wameandikwa. Sasa ndio watu 260.
Other hospitals facing probe include JKIM Medical Center, St. Peter Orthopedic and Surgical Hospital, Afya Bora Hospital Annex, Joy Nursing and Maternity Hospital, Afya Bora in Mwea, Beirut Pharmacy and Medical Center, and Amal Hospital Limited. Zainab Mohammed, T47.
Well, thank you, Zainab Mohammed, for that. Now, one of the followers of Kilifi cult leader Paul Mackenzie has died, while 2 others have been admitted to hospital in critical condition. And as Elizabeth Yateno now tells us, Paul Mackenzie and his fellow suspects will remain in custody until the 27th of this month, as human rights activists insist that more needs to be told of what really transpired in the Shakahola forest.
3 years ago, thousands of unsuspecting Christians left everything behind and accompanied one Paul Mackenzie to the forest. The followers vowed to starve to death in a bid to allegedly meet their maker. It is this burning desire to meet the maker that has led to the death of one Joseph Buyuka, who staged a hunger strike while in detention at the Malindi GK prison. The late Buyuka is among 30 other followers of controversial preacher Paul Mackenzie who were arrested for fasting. It is a fast that has left Evans Kalombe and Frederick Karemi in critical condition at the Malindi Hospital. Haki Africa is now demanding for the release of the followers, saying they are innocent.
Even as we speak presently, you know that even the ones that have been rescued are now still insisting on fasting, which means that this is something that will take a while. And we are very disturbed to see that the government is now opting to charge these individuals in court instead of offering psychosocial support. We spoke to some of these victims and we told them to, if they know of any estimates. And they said definitely the numbers that we have seen so far should be much higher because they said could even reach 1,000.
Mackenzie and his fellow suspects will remain in custody till the 27th of June, when the court will determine whether they will be detained for 60 days.
Since the other side of the story is not known at the moment, I will only direct that the rights of the respondents be protected while in custody. I'll also direct that the prosecution obtains instructions so as to respond on the allegations on the next mentioned date.
In terms of the case and Mackenzie, yes, I also think that could have been done better. By now we should have been advanced in terms of the prosecution. But it took quite a while for them to even decide on what charges to prefer against Mackenzie and his colleagues.
As of today, a total of 336 bodies have been exhumed from the Shakahola forest. And now, Haki Africa, through its executive director Hussein Khalid, says there is more than meets the eye in the Shakahola massacre in as far as the government's knowledge on the going-ons in the forests.
And, we spoke to those first few families there, and they told us that, they were informed that it's not just a word of God. Yeah, there is a possibility of, indoctrination of some kind, or the use of mental, possession of some kind that was used against these individuals. Some of those bodies that were buried actually had burial permits, which means the chiefs knew that bodies were being buried, because how else would you issue a burial permit in Shakahola if there was no evidence that someone had died? So there is clear evidence that some of the authorities knew that people were dying and people were being buried.
On Wednesday at the Malindi Sub-County Hospital Funeral Home, a team of experts from the Forensics Department led by Chief Government Pathologist Dr. Johansen Odor conducted a post-mortem on 27 bodies, where 25 bodies were found to be severely decomposed, with starvation being the main cause of death.
And as per the cause of death, we were able to establish that 16 of them died because of starvation, while 12 of them were too much decomposed that we were unable to find what was the cause of death.
And so far we have established from our take that the allegation of organs being removed from these bodies, we've not gotten any evidence to indicate that the organ business was going on.
So far, 93 DNA samples have been collected and 36 arrests have been made. The total number of those rescued is still 95, while that of missing persons remains 613. Elizabeth Atieno, TV 47.
Well, matatu owners and operators in Kisumu County have decried the rising cost of living and fuel prices, saying their businesses are incurring losses. This has forced some of them to sell their vehicles at throwaway prices, while some have been reclaimed by the banks. Matatu Owners Association Secretary for Kisumu County, Felix Ochieng, says the youth who were working in the sector have been rendered jobless. Taxi operators have also decried the high fuel prices, urging the government to ease the load on citizens.
Kisumu County PSV operators have decried the high cost of fuel, which they say is likely to lead to job losses among the youth.
That as the matatu industry, we are going through the worst times in our business. The fuel price has gone up and other levies have also been up.
This comes amidst the ongoing debate on the finance bill, which seeks to increase the fuel levy to 16%. Early in the week, the Energy, Petroleum and Regulatory Authority released the new retail prices for super petrol, diesel and kerosene.
The increment of the VAT percentage on fuel, which has been 8%, this time we've been told it's going to be 16%. That is 100% increment on the VAT, which will bring the price to around 200 shillings per litre on fuel.
The operators, led by Matatu Owners Association Secretary for Kisumu County, Felix Ochieng, have expressed displeasure, with some resorting to selling their vehicles, as others had their vehicles reclaimed by debtors and auctioneers.
This has forced most of motor vehicle owners to sell their vehicles to other people, and some have been taken back by the financiers because of failure to pay loans in time.
They say they have complied with everything as required by the National Transport and Safety Authority (NTSA), but the high cost of fuel threatens to hinder their business.
Our drivers and conductors, through their circles, have managed to secure driving license and PSV budgets for every particular person. But for the past 4 or 5 months, the business has been on the lower side. This has forced most of motor vehicle owners to sell their vehicles to other people, and some have been taken back by the financiers because of failure to pay loans in time.
Clarkson Chacha, a taxi driver, says the situation is tough and they only hope for easing of the high cost of living.
Unapata fuel
imepiga, because unapata client sasa, ukiwa ulikuwa una pali ulikuwa na mchaji 1,000, saa hizi lazima umchaji 2,000 mara 2 au mara 3, ndio at least uweke fuel na ubaki na kitu ya kwenda nao kwa nyumba.
Vera Alberta, TV47, Nairobi.
Meru County has joined the list of the counties that have adjourned their sittings following the move by the Salaries and Remuneration Commission to increase their salaries by 10,000 shillings. The assembly closed indefinitely, with members saying their salaries are too low for the role that they play. Led by Meru Assembly Majority Leader Evans Mawira, they have said that it will be difficult to oversight the governor who earns in millions, or even county executives who earn triple their salary. They have added that they are ready to have a meeting with the Deputy President to discuss the matter. Uasin Gishu County Assembly adjourned its sittings yesterday over the same.
Meru County Assembly has held its second sitting for the day, and during the second sitting, the Assembly has resolved to adjourn Sunday, or what we call adjourn without a future date for sitting, in solidarity or in compliance with the directive made by CAF after a consultative meeting between CAF officials, all majority leaders and all minority leaders of the 47 county assemblies in the country, because of the suffering that MCAs have been undergoing, as an agitation to our rights, especially the remuneration of the MCAs, which is supposed to be effected by the SRC. And during the third review of state officer salaries, SRC proposed to increase the salaries of the MCAs by a mere 10,000, whereas they have increased the salaries of county secretaries by more than 200,000, salaries of speakers by more than 50,000, but for the MCAs who are the lowest paid, they have only decided or resolved to increase by a mere 10,000.
Bunge, kwa sababu pia sisi kama MCA tuna rights zetu, na kama nilivyosema pale bungeni, sisi hatuna mtetezi, sisi hatuna mtu wa kututetea sisi. Sisi tunatetea wananchi, lakini sisi hatuna mtetezi. Kwa hivyo mtetezi nambari 1 wa MCA ni MCA mwenyewe. Nataka kushtumu sana SRC. SRC wanamwangusha rais. Na mimi sifikiri kuna siku moja rais amesema mishahara ya mandiwani izukishwe ama manufaa fulani yaondolewe.
Well, on that note, and at 31 minutes past the hour, time now for a very short break. Don't go away. We'll be back with more.
You are watching TV47, the home of untold stories. Welcome to the Mwai Kibaki Convention Center, the premier events venue. Our state-of-the-art facilities are designed to meet all your needs, from large-scale conferences to intimate meetings and everything in between. Located in the heart of Thika, the Mwai Kibaki Convention Center offers stunning views of the city skyline and is easily accessible from all major transportation hubs. Our facility features ample parking, free Wi-Fi, advanced audiovisual equipment, and our technical team is always on hand to ensure your event runs smoothly and seamlessly. Don't take our word for it. Make your next event unforgettable at the Mwai Kibaki Convention Center. Contact us today for bookings and reservations. Email multimedia@mku.ac.ke or call us on 0708 212204 or 0727 441733 or 0721 438 629 to learn more about our services and book your event.
Faven Properties Limited gives you an opportunity to be a proud landowner of 50 by 80 plots at the picturesque range of Joscan Dovoine, going for 350,000 only. We have other 40 by 60 plots in Kamulu Ngondo going for 650,000. The plots are architecturally designed in a gated community with access roads and water. We have ready title deeds waiting to be transferred to your name. Call us today on 0716 44 2277 or pay us a visit at your preferred time at Roy Post Office Building, 2nd floor.
Uko tayari? Radio inayokuwa kwa kasi zaidi humu nchini. Radio 47 inakuja mahali ulipo. Wakazi wa Mai Mahiu, Narok, Bomet, Nyamira, Kisii, Homa Bay, Kisumu, Vihiga, Bungoma, Kitale, Eldoret, Nakuru na maeneo jirani, ni zamu yenyu kutamba na Radio 47. Katika roadshow za kukata na shoka, kutakuwa na ngoma, football trivia na mashamsham mengine kibao. Pia usikose fursa ya kukutana ana kwa ana na watangazaji na madj wapendao. Tamba na Radio 47, si ya kukosa. You are watching TV 47, the home of untold stories.
Welcome back and thanks for staying with us. Now, as I told you earlier, members of the National Assembly are currently voting for or against some amendments in some clauses that are included in the finance bill. And I do understand that we have our political reporter Liz Mutuku in Parliament. Liz, if you can hear me, good evening, and what is the latest from where you are?
Good evening, right from Parliament. This is where I've been camping from morning, following what has been happening. And if to say so, from yesterday, that is when the voting on Finance Bill 2023 commenced. And yesterday they voted at least in 26 clauses, with only one or rather two clauses which were so contentious or rather contested on. That is the clause 2, which touched on digital content creators and monetization bit, as well as who exactly is a digital content creator, and also the remittance of taxes and levy for the housing, not really housing, but for the business people. That is, if you earn at least 1 million to 15 million yearly, that means you would be able to contribute 15% of taxes, and that is what was being contested yesterday. However, today came and members of Parliament from Clause 26, they started voted from around 2:30 p.m. and two major contested clauses in Finance Bill were being voted in today, with 8% tax on fuel to 16 that was passed by at least 184 members majority, with only 88 members contesting or rather voting no on this. And now as we are speaking, or rather as I'm updating this, they are voting on the housing levy, and earlier on there was a very heated debate on this, members of Azimio insisting that this might be one of the scandalous or rather major scandals we've ever witnessed in centuries here in the country, but Azimio, but Kenya Kwanza insists that this is a better way of us doing whatever we need, especially raising taxes and also building for whoever is deemed not to be having houses, or rather the poor. But members of Parliament are still going on with the voting. Whatever will come out of this, we'll be able to update you on this. Remember, this is almost the last clause which has been contested, or rather had more amendments from members of Parliament in the National Assembly, and it's likely to be the last clause which is going to close the day. That means the business on this Finance Bill 2023 is likely to come to an end today. That is around midnight or around 1:30 a.m. as it was yesterday. It's something which my colleagues are following from Parliament, especially my camera person. In this silent night, they will at least let me be here as we update you on what is happening, and also our digital part of it. We are doing our best. But back to you in studio.
Well, Liz, before I let you go, you remember during the second reading of the bill, some members of the Azimio coalition had been given show cause letters for failing to vote entirely, or rather, voting for it. And I do understand that we've lost that signal there with Elizabeth. I do hope that we are going to engage her later on in this broadcast. And of course, she's updating us on what is the latest from Parliament. Members of the National Assembly, of course, are scrutinizing, paying keen detail to the Finance Bill 2023. Moving on. Siaya Deputy Governor William Oduol might be the first deputy governor to be impeached from office since the onset of devolution. Members of County Assembly of Siaya have termed his conduct as unfit for office as they highlight a number of key issues, among them forced incurring of expenses of approximately 18 million to renovate his office. While defending himself before the committee, Oduol turns the tables on his accusers, calling his impeachment a witch hunt. Paul Kirobi reports.
Knowing very well that there were no budgetary provisions to that effect.
The goose of Siaya Deputy Governor William Oduol appears to be cooking as the 11-member Senate committee embarks on hearing of complaints from members of the Siaya County Assembly. The internal wrangles within county government is evidence in Parliament, pitting Oduol against his Governor James Orengo. Among the key allegations that members of County Assembly tabled to Parliament include the forced incurring of expenses of approximately 18 million shillings to renovate an office, purchase of furniture and office equipment, an expenditure that was not in the budget. For example, this chair cost at least 1 million shillings, something MCS through their lawyers say contravenes Section 53(2) of the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Act of 2015. The 11-member Senate committee were entertained with claims that Oduol sought personal comfort rather than delivery of service to the residents of Siaya, allegations Oduol rebuked through his legal counsel Paul Nyamondi.
But the first thing he did was to bully, intimidate for new furniture to be procured. We will show you through the witness that what at the beginning was a request for purchase of carpets and tiles.
None of the articles of impeachment as framed by the County Assembly passes the threshold. There is no evidence. They are hollow allegations.
Among other claims leveled against the deputy governor include contravening Section 34 of the Leadership and Integrity Act of 2012 that stipulates a state officer should not bully any person. But according to Oduol, he had to confront Acting Finance and Economic Planning Chief Officer Jack Odinga after he noted irregular expenditures and withdrawal.
And in the morning, say 8 or 9 o'clock, withdraw 900. 11 o'clock, another 900. 2 o'clock, another 900. In a day, one junior officer, 5 million, 6 million. The question I ask, if these are legitimate business expenditure, why wouldn't you just write one check?
Members of county assemblies also accused the deputy governor of misleading the assembly that the county bursary allocation is riddled by corruption and that head teachers were left out during the vetting process. Also, the funds allocated towards completion of Siaya Stadium had been reallocated in the supplementary budget 1 in the financial year 2022-2023, yet it was confirmed the monies had not been withdrawn, as claimed by Oduol. The besieged deputy denied all allegations leveled against him. The charges in brief are gross violation of the Constitution, abuse of office, misuse of public resources, and misleading the public on information. On Thursday, there will be the reading of the charges leveled against the Deputy Governor. The committee will submit their report before the House on Monday, 26th. Paul Kirobi, TV47, Nairobi.
Now, the Kenya Kwanza government has promised the country that it will not interfere with the operations of constitutional and independent commissions and assured that it's committed to support and empower the offices as they discharge their mandates. Have a look.
Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has granted Independent Commission assurance that the government is ready to honor Article 249 of the 2010 Constitution by allowing a fair ground for the Commission to perform their constitutional mandates. The article highlights, among other things, the objectives of these commissions, which the public claim has been undermined by the executive. Speaking at his official current residence during a meeting with members of the Independent Commission, the country's second in command has cited that the government has increased the funds allocated to independent commissions so as to enable them to carry out their activities swiftly.
These constitutional commissions and independent offices are very critical in service delivery
and therefore it is the intention of government to facilitate them and to make sure they are able to work seamlessly to serve the people of Kenya. I've taken time to assure the commissions and the independent offices that President William Ruto and his administration have no intention whatsoever to interfere with their functional and operational independence. Ours is to support their work by creating bridges where there are issues that are cross-cutting between government and parliament and other bodies.
The DPS, however, used the platform to call for order and good relation between commissions and independent offices, urging them to seek alternative ways of solving their issues rather than wasting taxpayers' money in legal battles. In reference to the public spat between National Police Service Commission and the Inspector General of Police, Japheth Koome, over the mandate to promote police officers, the DPS called for dialogue in case of any misunderstanding so as to restore their public trust.
We'll have an opportunity to iron them out so that that commission and that independent office can serve our country better. Again, there are issues that have been brought to my office by the Parliamentary Service Commission with a view of asking us to engage the SRC to see whether we can get a common ground and understanding.
There are 14 commissions and 2 independent offices covering human rights, land, elections and salaries in the public sphere, and all these are legitimately formed under the 2010 Constitution, and they are also supposed to operate without any external interference. Jackson Chacha, TV47.
Laikipia East constituency member of parliament Mwangi Kiunjuri has appeared before the National Assembly's Justice and Legal Affairs Committee to present his proposals to amend the IEBC Act. Will his proposals involve going into a referendum? Have a look. Mwangi Kiunjuri, the former cabinet secretary who is now Laikipia East constituency MP, is a man on a mission to amend the constitution through a proposed Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission Amendment Bill 2023.
On the outset, I want to say that what I'm proposing is within the Constitution, and it is urgent, noting that the Constitution timelines on issues of delimitation of boundaries are coming to end next year, around February.
In his legislation, which he terms as constitutional reforms for equality of the vote in Kenya, Kiunjuri wants the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, JLAC, to amend the IEBC Act, which falls under Article 81 of the Constitution. Article 82(1)(a) states that Parliament shall enact legislation to provide for the delimitation by the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission of electoral units for election of members of the National Assembly and county assemblies. Kiunjuri is of the view that the primary criterion should be population. This is because other constitutional principles and rights, including the equality of the vote, the equal protection of laws, and the centrality of political rights to the protection of all other rights, including the equitable sharing of resources, are in play.
All what you're asking IEBC is to ensure what is provided for by the law. Article 9, especially 6 and 12, are adhered to. What does the Constitution call for? It's the mean. It's a mean that it should be the population in urban areas should not be more than 40% mean and not less than 40%. In other areas, rural areas, it should be 30-30. Is that the case today? The case is no. And in fact, matters have been made worse by the fact that the population then is not the population we have today.
The legislator wants the committee to urgently consider and approve the introduction of an amendment to the IEBC Act to mandate the IEBC to ensure fair representation and equality of the vote within counties in the coming boundary review exercise. The legislator also argues that his proposal is premised on Parliament's obligation to ensure proper boundary limitation and the nature of constituency inequalities within counties across the country. In his proposal, Kiunjuri further says that within counties, the principle of equality of the franchise has been flagrantly violated, whether the county is a sparsely populated rural county or a densely populated one. According to him, it seems that the more sparsely populated a county is, the more likely it is that its smallest constituency will deviate from the mean by a larger percentage than that county's largest constituency.
And therefore, what I'm calling for is what is about posterity. It's not just of us coming here and winning political mileage for the expediency of the day, but it's about posterity. It's about this country. It's about being patriotic. If you look at what has happened 10 years down the line, from those parameters that were looked then and where we are today, things have completely changed.
His legislative proposal recommends that Parliament approves the introduction of a bill to amend the IEBC Act to require equality within constituencies in counties and to leave the question of inter-county inequalities subjected to a possible change in the constitutional amendment process. Other proposals include constitutional changes to address disparities across and between counties. On the skewness of numbers versus land size, Mwangi Kiunjuri argues that Kenya embraces a system that combines single-member constituencies and party list MPs. Kiunjuri's proposals, which will be introduced through a committee of parliament, need to fall under Article 256 of the Constitution. A bill to amend the Constitution may be introduced in either House of Parliament, may not address any other matter apart from consequential amendments to legislation arising from the bill, shall not be called for second reading in either House within 90 days after the first reading of the bill in that House, and shall have been passed by Parliament when each House of Parliament has passed the bill in both its second and third readings by not less than 2/3 of all the members of that House. Parliament shall publicise any bill to amend this constitution and facilitate public discussion about the bill. If a bill to amend the Constitution proposes an amendment relating to a matter specified in Article 255, the President shall, before assenting to the bill, request the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission to conduct within 90 days a national referendum for approval of the bill, and within 30 days after the chairperson of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission has certified to the President that the bill has been approved in accordance with Article 255(2), the President shall assent to the bill and cause it to be published. As it stands, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, IEBC, is not fully constituted, and that will need to be dealt with even as the Commission prepares to conduct the delimitation. Article 89(2) of the Constitution states that the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission shall review the names and boundaries of